longtime District 4 parliamentarian, Carl Thorman.
Thank you, Madam President. Anybody here a member of a homeowners association or anything similar? One, two? Now, they probably have rules, or they should.
I wish.
And
Too many.
somewhere, if you really dig into these associations, somewhere it says what the rules are. And many of these associations forget that there are rules. And sometimes they pass some motion that actually violates a rule or something, or perhaps arbitrarily make some assessment, and everybody that is a member of that association has to pay a certain amount to help fix the roofs or whatever. And it was never voted on, and somebody decided we're going to do it. And then somebody looked into who said we could do that? How could they make us do that? And they find out that they really didn't follow the rules, whatever the rules may be. And when that happens, and there's money at stake with people, what sometimes occurs? Anybody have any idea?
Lawsuits.
Lawsuit, you got it. Yeah, you got a lawsuit all of a sudden on your board of directors because they screwed up and they didn't vote on it or whatever. And that's just one example. I mean, any organization that you have that is a large organization is going to have some way to have an intelligent meeting. Okay? Now, when I first joined Toastmasters many decades ago, we actually had a 2-hour meeting in the evening, and the first 20 minutes was a business meeting, and parliamentary procedure was followed. But lately it's become a lost art. Most clubs like us meet for an hour, maybe at lunch, maybe after work, and so the idea of learning parliamentary procedure by doing it on a routine basis, we've kind of lost that over the years. But again, a working knowledge is essential if you want to keep yourself out of trouble, like as I started the meeting. Now, the basic set of rules that people go by is Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. And this is actually the 11th edition. There's actually a 12th edition out. Now it came out a couple of years ago. But basically, everything you need to know is in this book. So do I suggest you go home and read this book? No. This will put you right to sleep. If you're having trouble with insomnia, you can't get to sleep, start reading this, you'll be out quickly. This is a reference, all right? You go to a specific paragraph that tells you how to do specifically what you may want to do. But everything's in here. And so most organizations basically have Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, as a basic set of rules. Now, other organizations pile on top of that. For example, in Toastmasters, we have a club constitution, we have a Toastmasters International Constitution that take precedent over Robert's Rules if there's a conflict, and most organizations have that. So I'm going to start off here with a few basic definitions. This is the thing that comes up next. Because I wasn't sure if we were going to get this going, I have some backup slides around the room. Also, the slides that I'm showing up here are in one of your handouts. And the handout that just has one of those slides actually drawn up, we're going to spend most of our time on. So anyway, you can look around the room as necessary. But the only parliamentary procedure, the simple definition is it's a set of rules to get things done in a meeting. That's all there is to it. Now, sometimes you have, as I mentioned, other documents that take precedence over Robert's Rules, and one of those would be a constitution. All right? Now, a constitution is a basic governing document that is very, very difficult to change. Now, for example, Toastmasters International has a club constitution and standard bylaws, or it used to be the standard bylaws, and it's the same for every club in the world. And the only way it can be changed is at the International Convention that's in August of every year by a majority, or by a 2/3 majority to make that change. And there have been some changes in recent years that has happened. There was one this past summer. Now, the next definition is bylaws. Okay, if you can't change the Constitution, how can you change things easily? Or maybe not really easily, but at least change things. And in Toastmasters, that would mean where we meet, the name of our club, how much our dues are. And until about 2 years ago, we had bylaws, which again were the same for all clubs in the world, except you could fill in the blanks for what your club name was, and when you met, and where you met, and what the dues were, and that sort of thing. And about 2 years ago, they changed the Constitution to eliminate the bylaws, and instead they have what they call an addendum now. So if one of those things changes by virtue of a vote of the club, as we recently changed our dues, for example, then the secretary needs to go in and fix the addendum, and I actually had to do that a couple of weeks ago, so that it reflects what our dues are with Toastmasters International at World Headquarters. Okay? Now, if you have things you want to do in a club that are pertaining particularly to your own club, and we do that here, we have something called standing rules. All right? For example, we have a standing rules that says that there will be an bill, and if you say an it's a 10-cent fine up to a maximum of 50 cents. That's a standing rule. We have a standing rule that says this club will have a word master. Not all clubs do. And we will have a word master, and if a person doesn't use the word, it costs 10 cents, and so forth. So we have a whole slew of these standing rules, and they're posted somewhere in Easy Speak. If you know how to drill down and find it, it's there. And you can see what all our standing rules are. There's about 2 pages worth of standing rules. So, and then the next definition I want to talk about is the presiding officer, and the presiding officer is simply the person responsible for conducting the meeting and observing the rules, getting the business done, conducting the meeting, observing the rules. Okay? Let's talk about quorum. What's a quorum in this club? Anybody know besides Arnie? What would a quorum be?
One more than 50%.
One more than 50%. Any other guesses?
Two-thirds?
Whatever Carl says.
That's what the rule says, actually. A quorum in Toastmasters is a majority of the active members. All right? So how many people we have around the table right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Assuming we're all active members, what would a quorum be? How many would make a quorum?
6.
6.
6, right. More than, it has to be a majority. So not necessarily one more than 50%. It could be 1/10 of a person more than 50% if you have that many people in the room. Okay? So just a majority of the active members. All right, so now I'm going to say these 3 people on this side of the room have become inactive. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's a quorum?
4.
4. Very good. Okay.
What
What if we had, in our club we have, before the dues got in and changed everything, we had 32 members. What's a quorum?
17.
Huh?
18.
17. How many of those 32 are inactive?
Oh.
Let's say 5. So 27 active. What's a quorum?
14.
14. So when the club president and I are whispering about do we have a quorum when we have a business meeting, we need to accomplish something, I'm looking at the spreadsheet and seeing, okay, who's active and who's inactive. And if we have 25 that are active, then we need at least 13 people here in the room to conduct business. Now today, we could not conduct business. We do not have a quorum. Right? Once we tell you we have 10 people here, 2 of whom are guests, so they don't count toward a quorum. That's 8, and that's not a majority. Okay? So at any rate, always remember, a simple way to remember it is a majority of active members. That's what a quorum is. The last definition that I mentioned is motion, and motion is simply a formal proposal that the assembly take certain action. I move that we do something. Okay, we'll get into that. All right, next thing I'm really going to gloss over because it's common sense, and that's fundamentals of parliamentary law. It's also sitting over here on the wall, it's on your spread, on your handout, so I'm not going to go into any specific details, except to say it will be evident later that these rules, if you follow these fundamentals, then you'll get things done. It keeps people from getting out of hand and meetings from going out of control, okay? So, the things I really want to spend most of my time on today are order of business and the 8 rules, or the 8 steps of making a motion. So let's go on to the order of business. If you have a normal business meeting, which we do not have in this club, except to some degree we do when we have the executive meetings, but that's a special case actually. But the first thing we do is, well, we want to call the meeting to order. And they simply say, well, the meeting please come to order. What does that mean? It means sit down and shut up. All right, we actually do that in here, and somebody gets up, Sergeant Arm gets up and bangs the gavel. Once. All right? You're not hammering, you're not a carpenter, just one time is absolutely sufficient. That's all that's required, and hopefully that will shut everybody up, and the meeting will come to order. So the next thing we're concerned with is reading and approval of minutes. Well, why do we want to do it then? Why? What's so magic about approving the minutes at that point? Anybody beside Artie? Tell me?
Help everybody get on the same page where we were.
Well, yeah, sort of, to make sure that the actual meeting, the actual minutes are correct. Okay, we now have 11 people in a room. What's a quorum?
6.
6, same as it was with 10, right? Because we needed a majority. Thank you for covering that. Let me make another point. Okay, so at any rate, the chair is going to say, are there any corrections to the minutes? Not are there any additions, subtractions, or corrections. Additions and subtractions are corrections. We had an executive meeting last week, and was there were any corrections? And there were none. And then later I found a typo that I had to change. But at any rate, if there's no corrections, then the minutes stand approved as distributed. If there are corrections at that time, then the minutes would stand approved as corrected. So we get that out of the way, and whatever we're doing further down in the meeting, there may be something in that set of minutes that defines what we're doing, and so we better get it right to start with. So we're all on the same page as was mentioned over here. Okay. So then we go to officers' reports, and probably the most significant officer report in any meeting is the treasurer's report. Now, the treasurer, in a verbal report, only needs to say 4 things: the beginning balance, the amount of money taken in, the amount spent, and the ending balance. So if Arnie were to give a treasurer's report, he might say, we have a beginning balance of $1,000, we took in $200, we spent $300, and our ending balance is $900. Well, is that enough detail for everybody? Well, no, and that's why Arnie has a handout with all the details, but if he read all of that, we'd be asleep by the time he got done. Okay, so simply all just those 4 things: the beginning balance, the amount taken in, the amount spent, and what you have left at the end of the period. So then we get to the, what do we do with the treasurer's report? Monique, what do we do with the treasurer's report?
File it subject to audit.
We file it subject to audit. We do not approve the treasurer's report. We learned that last week. You say, well, we don't approve the treasurer's report. We said approving the treasurer's report doesn't make it right, okay? So that's why we have an audit, and Toastmasters requires that every club audits its books, and Arnie's been audited in the past, and we now have a new audit committee that's going after Arnie again at some point in the not too distant future.
So I won't release my taxes until it's done.
Right, exactly. So you might say, oh, for this high subject, you mean we don't trust the treasurer? No, we don't trust the treasurer. We had a gentleman who was a Marine, and he ran for treasurer, actually, in this club, this was years ago. And at the time, we used to campaign for office, and in his campaign speech, he said, I'm going to take the treasury money and move to Bolivia. He didn't, he moved to Japan. But he left the treasurer alone when he left. No, we don't trust the treasurer, and that's why we always have an audit. It protects the treasurer as well as protecting the organization. So then after the treasurer's report, then you go into committee reports. Now, you've got the other officer reports besides the treasurer, like you've got the vice president of education and so forth, as you did last week. And then we go into committee reports. Now, there's 2 different kinds of committees: standing committee and special committee. Can anybody tell me the difference?
Standing is permanent, special is for special occasion.
That's right, that's exactly true. So an example, for example, of a standing committee would be the executive committee. It's always there. It's, whether it's operating or not, it's always there. There's an executive committee, right? And what would be an example of a special committee?
Contest committee.
A contest committee would be? How about a nominating committee?
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah. Speaking of which. All right. Nominating committee, a special committee when they've done their business, all right, Monique is going to appoint a nominating committee. They're going to come up with a slate of nominees that are willing to run for office, present it to the club that we can later vote on. And once they've done that, they're through. That's the end of that committee. The committee's disbanded, okay, they're done. But a standing committee is one that's always there. Everybody understand that difference? Okay, then, if there is any action to be taken as a result of a committee report, it can be moved right then by a member of the committee rather than waiting for a new business or whatever. Get it done, get it out of the way. You can do that. All right, then the next thing is unfinished business. Now, okay, a big foot stomp on this one. All right, it's unfinished business, not old business. How many times have I seen agendas that say old business and I cringe? Old business is business you're done with, you're finished with, you're never gonna touch it again, all right? Unfinished business is something that you never quite got through with the previous meeting and you still need to work on it. For example, 2 executive committee meetings ago, it was established that Monique needed to appoint an audit committee. All right, well, during the course of the next month, she didn't actually do that, so it remained unfinished business, and it was brought up again last week, and then Monique appointed the audit committee, which then made it old business, and we don't want to deal with it anymore, okay? So unfinished business are things that are still pending, still hanging fire from the previous meeting, whatever that may have been. And then we move on.
Can I ask a point
Sure.
of clarification?
Uh-huh.
You have, I've been putting unfinished business under the reports because they apply to each of the officer reports in either the standing committee or the officer reports. Is that
You should have a
inappropriate?
separate list for unfinished business. Now, during a committee report, again, something can come up, it could be briefed, but some decision has to be made. Let's say Kyle gives an educational committee report, and she said, and we have the contest on a certain date. We can do that right out of the committee report. All right.
But it should be listed under all separately under
Yeah.
unfinished business.
Mhm. Now, there's some special rules for small committees like the executive committee that I may not get into today. So let's just go ahead and move on at this point. Okay, then new business, and that includes known new business, unknown new business, and ideally you know ahead of time what the new business is going to be if you're the chair. That's the ideal situation. One thing I always like to mention here is what authority do people have to spend club funds? And the answer is basically none. The body has, the Toastmasters, the body itself, this meeting, this group, is the only place where the expenditures of funds can be approved. Now there's some caveats there, because one way we do that is we establish a budget. Arnie set up a budget at the beginning of the year, it'll cover the whole year, that basically covers how we plan to spend our money, where we're going to get it from, how we're going to spend it, and the club voted for that budget, and that gives Arnie the authority to proceed with spending. One of the things, for example, is a section on supplies. So if Arnie needs to buy ballots, he doesn't have to come to the club for permission to buy ballots, he already has it. Another thing we can do is put in the standing rules something where there's an expenditure is authorized. For example, in the standing rules, it says that if you go to officer training, the club will pay for your registration. That's a standing rule that we voted on already, so we don't have to vote on it again, and Arnie can go ahead and pay that fee. So, any questions about the order of business at this point? So I want to get on to the fun part.
I do have a question.
Mhm.
So for new business, bringing new business up that you can't can you have a new business, have discussion, and have a vote on it right there? Or is there some way to protect that process of you can bring it up and talk about it, but you can't make a motion on it and vote about it? Or does that need to be?
Yes, in a small committee like executive committee, you can do precisely that. All right, but that's, I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that part of this. It's almost a second lecture, second topic here. Okay. Yeah, the rules for small committees are much more fluid than for a big group. What I'm giving you today is if you have a large assembly, primarily. If you go to a district conference meeting, this is how they will follow. These are the rules they will follow. Okay, let's go to the 8 steps of making a motion. And this is where everybody really messes up all the time. It's really not that hard, all right? The 8 steps are posted over here as well. This is in case the projector didn't work. And by the way, my backup to this was the overhead projector, and the light bulbs burned out, so fortunately, fortunately, I brought my third backup just in case, because before Arnie got here, I didn't even know how to get the screen down, much less turn the computer on. So there we are. He's just making the motion. First is stand and address the chair. Person has some business, he or she stands and says, Mr. Chairman, or Madam Chairman, whatever the case may be. So Arnie, please stand and address the chair.
Mr. Chairman,
All right, that's the first step. Now, the second step is not for Arnie to start talking, all right? It's for the chair to recognize, and the chair recognizes Toastmaster Arnie Buss. Okay, sit down. See, so that's the first two steps. Stand and address the chair, wait to be recognized. A lot of people just can't wait, they start talking. Okay? That's not good. All right, the next thing, this is a formal situation, okay, not so much what we do in executive committee, but in a formal situation, perhaps someone wishes to make a motion about something. And I'll put something frivolous here. Someone gets up and say, I move, we open the door. All right? So that's how you state your motion. You say, I move that. Whatever it is, I move that. We open the door. Not I would like to make a motion that we open the door. Not that I make a motion we open the door. Not that, can we open the door now, please? But I move that we open the door. Okay? So then, that's the third step. And the fourth step, of course, is you need to get a second to the motion. Now, why do we need a second? Anybody have any idea? Why do we even bother getting a second?
Make sure somebody else agrees.
That's right, make sure, until you said agrees, you were fine.
No.
Make sure that somebody else is willing to talk about it. They don't have to agree. If only one person wants to talk about something, it's not worth our time. Okay? I can tell you a story up at the district several years ago when Ken Cawley was district governor. The room was full, 150, 200 people, and there was this one guy from the San Jose Area Club, and he had this motion in writing, and he handed it to the secretary ahead of time, as was the rule that required that he do so. And when his turn came up, he got up, and I moved that with this long motion. Nobody seconded the motion. Motion died. And Ken says, what do? And I said, the motion dies for lack of a second. And then we moved on. And it was woo. But that would have been another hour for that particular incident. I won't go into details. But so the way you want to make sure, if you have a motion, that somebody's going to second it. All right? So, for example, I'm going to say, I'm going to move, Monique, I'm going to move that we open the door. Will you second that motion for me, please, when I make the motion? And you say, sure, happy to.
Sure, I'm happy to.
So I get up, I move that way, open the door, and I come over and nudge Monique, and she jumps up and says, what?
I
I
second.
second.
I second.
Yeah, I second the motion.
Yep.
No, she doesn't need to jump up, actually. I mean, you do not need to be recognized to second the motion. But that cues in the chair that it's worth talking about. At least two people want to talk about it, all right? So, again, if you have something that's important that you really want brought up, plant your second somewhere in the assembly, someone who will actually second it for you, and you can proceed. So the third step is the chair states the motion. All right? I'm sorry, right now we're at the fifth one. All right? At this point, the motion belongs still to the person that made the motion. At this point, chair said it's been moved and seconded that we open the door. Now it's our motion. And Arnie can't really take it back. And he says, well, I take it back if I second, no, it's too late, because it's now our motion to dispose of one way or another. And the simple thing about this is that, if you go into discussion and so forth, and then ultimately a decision is made that yes or no, we're going to open the door or we're not. Now, can the chair make a motion in a formal meeting?
Sure.
Okay,
I don't
yeah,
think
sure.
so.
And I don't think so. But the I don't think so is closer to correct.
All right, no.
No. Why? If the chair makes a motion,
Who recognizes?
huh?
Yeah,
Who's recognizing it?
Well, that's one of it, but more important, they're already taking sides on an issue, and they're supposed to be objective. It's up to the chair to process the business, not to create the new item of business. But there are ways around this, all right? If you have a motion, if you know the room is warm and you want someone to move that we open the door, then you go up to Hey, Charlie, would you, when we come to new business, will you make a motion that we open the door? Charlie said, sure. So, then the chair would say, is there any new business? And Charlie would rise and stand and address the chair, and I would acknowledge him and move that we open the door. So the chair hasn't done it. I planted somebody in the audience to do it for me. Now sometimes the chair forgets to do that, so the chair will say, another way of doing it is the chair will entertain a motion. It's hot in here. The chair will entertain a motion that we open the door. Not taking sides, he's suggesting that someone do this. You see this all the time. Now at the district meeting, those of you that have been at district meetings know that sometimes when you get to that point, and someone says, when you get to the point where the chair will entertain a motion, nobody gets up, nobody says anything, and you're dead. So the way around it is you plant somebody ahead of time, you know, that somebody, and Artie's seen this, and I know Tatiana's been up there, there's always somebody make a motion when a motion is called for, because that's all prearranged. Okay? That way you get it done. Now, again, it's now our motion, and so then we get into discussion. Now, the rules there is the maker of the motion gets to speak first, argue in favor, defend, whatever, motion. So if Artie had made the motion that we open the door, it would then be called on first to tell us why we ought to open the door. It's hot in here and it's stuffy, and can we open the door? Okay, and then Arnie is entitled to speak twice on this issue. Anyone is entitled to speak twice on any issue, but no one can speak a second time until everyone that wishes to speak has spoken the first time. Okay? So ideally, you'd have pro, con, but the chair normally is not going to know who's pro and who's con, and has to kind of play it by ear. Now, suppose that it is, we're going back to the chair again, suppose the chair feels strongly about this motion and wants to argue in favor or against it. What happens then? Okay, if the chair feels strongly about a motion, the chair must relinquish the chair at that point, and the number two person would come up and continue. And I've seen this happen at the district years ago. But the chair would say, I have something I want to say about this motion. It's okay to clarify it, as long as you're not taking sides. But if Monique were up here, she would say, I have something I want to say about this motion. Kyle, will you please come up and take over? And Kyle would have to run the rest of that particular business until a vote was taken and it was either accepted or defeated.
Excuse me, on that point, may I be recognized? So yes.
The chair recognizes Kyle.
Okay, with that, would I have to be voted on to do that?
No,
So
you're
there's
second in
no-
command.
Okay, so.
All right, if something happens to the first in command, she doesn't show up for the meeting, you take over, right? You're
Well, of
on,
course,
it's
yeah.
a similar kind of thing. So Monique's saying, I'm going to step down because I have something I want to say about this, I have an opinion. Kyle, will you please come up and take over until we decide the business here? And then once whatever is decided, then Monique would come back up and resume as chair. Okay?
Don't have to do that.
I have already.
I've seen that happen at the district.
Point of clarification, on the discussion, you mentioned that everybody who wants to speak can speak more than once, can speak twice. Can they only speak twice when you're discussing an item?
Oh, no,
Or can you
you
go
can
more?
speak
You can, as many times as you want,
Yeah.
you just need to go through and make sure everybody who wants to speak has had a
Has
chance
the
on.
opportunity to
that.
speak twice. Everyone's entitled to speak twice.
Okay,
All right.
and then you
But,
can continue.
you know, if the discussion's still going on and it hasn't been beaten to death, in some way you can
Just
continue.
open the door, okay?
Okay, so then the chair, the next step, the chair takes a vote. And the chair is going to say something like, are you ready for the question? And if nothing is said, say, okay, we're ready for a vote. All in favor say what?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay? Not by the usual sign. How many times have you heard it? Everybody in favor, please signify by the usual sign. What's the usual sign? I don't know. Yeah. So all in favor say aye. All opposed say what?
Nay.
No. On
No.
the board.
Horses say nay. People say no. Okay. All opposed say no. Now Congress hasn't gotten that figured out yet. So okay. So the next thing happens is can the chair vote? on this motion?
No.
Generally speaking, no. Now, if the vote is on something that she is a member of the assembly, and it's a balloted measure such as an election, and has a ballot, she fills out the ballot, yeah, she could vote that way, because she's not really showing her hand. But the chair can only vote to alter the result. Okay, so how would that work?
There's a tie.
If there is a tie is one way, and if there's a tie, what happens to the motion? If the chair doesn't vote, what happens?
It's gone.
It's defeated, it didn't get a majority, right? So the chair is not going to want to get up and say, I vote against it. It's already defeated, and it's just going to hack off half the people in the room, all right? So that's one thing. Now suppose she thought that that motion should pass. And in that case, in case of a tie, yes, it would be appropriate for her to break that tie and vote in favor of the motion, and the motion would carry, and we would open the door.
Carl, so in Toastmasters, when we're nominating a new member, the chair is not supposed to vote?
That's a little bit different situation.
I don't.
All right,
I don't.
and the chair generally doesn't vote. I mean, I've only seen one instance where there was a case where we might not have voted in somebody, it was 20 years ago.
I just meant that the chair does. The chair
No.
remains so.
The chair,
But I do something like, please raise your hand,
Yeah.
because we're all quiet, so
Okay.
please raise your
Okay.
hand, and then please raise your hand.
that's a fine point.
Yeah.
That's the one place where we raise our hand, because the person we're voting on is right outside the door, and if somebody says no, we don't want them to hear it, all right? So, nobody ever has. In all my years in Toastmasters, I only saw it happen one time, and it was a long time ago. All right.
Right, that's right.
Now, so the chair can only vote to alter the result, either to break or to create a tie. Maybe it was 7-6 in favor, and Monique didn't want to open the door, so she could vote no, that'd make it a tie and it's defeated. Okay? So create a tie or break a tie. All right, we're going to start an exercise here. This is a very simple exercise.
Carl, may I ask you a question, please?
Dana?
About standing and addressing the chair. Can it be done at any moment?
Say-
Like, can
say
I
it again.
interrupt the meeting at any time by standing and saying, Mr. Toastmaster, like,
For what purpose?
to make a motion?
No, you
The-
need to be recognized.
But she wasn't, can she?
Yeah, like,
Can she
there
do
is
it
a
at any
meeting,
time?
Anytime that someone else doesn't have the floor.
Somebody else will always
Someone
have the
else.
floor.
Well, there will be a point at which that person is through, and then you can get up and Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Okay, you can't just get up in the middle of somebody else speaking.
uh-huh.
There are some things where you can do that, but that's lesson 3.